It is the time where I told you we're going to look in detail at this cost of living crisis, and to help perhaps inform our decision, let's turn to a prominent MP, Conservative MP and Minister for Business, Energy and Clean Growth, Greg Hands, who joins me now. As the good people of Chelsea and Fulham and constituents of other MPs up and down the land turn to their papers and their headlines and sees the Financial Times household budget suffer biggest blow in 3 decades, perfect storm the Metro, the Daily Telegraph, a Conservative supporting paper, the big squeeze, and the Times, Britain's facing biggest drop in living standards, noting your party has been in power for 12 years. What's the principal thing you've got wrong? Good morning.
Morning, Nick. Well, look, we absolutely recognise the difficult times that many households will have this year. Recalling at the backdrop of this, of course, is the big global rise in energy prices. The UK is not exempt from that. We do have the fastest rate of economic growth of the major economies in the G7.
From a low base.
We're also providing a lot of support for households, both directly on energy bills and also on wider costs. That should be recognised as well. We're not immune from these changes, but the government has provided assistance for households, particularly low and middle income households.
Assistance that, of course, must be paid back in time, Minister.
Well, the council tax rebate of £150, that is a one-off payment. That does not need to be repaid. The £200 assistance with bills will be repaid, but over a 5-year period. But it gives people assistance now, or to be more precise, in October, for coming into the next winter in terms of paying their energy bills. The other assistance that is there, the rise in the national living wage, the change in the universal credit taper rate, all of these things are things that are kicking in April in those cases.
The package that was outlined by the Chancellor, around £9 billion worth, had not been noted in his statement or budget a few weeks ago. How come he found the cash now?
Well, look, what we've seen has been a sustained period of higher energy prices, which at the time of the budget back at the end of October, the energy price cap gets set over an average of 6 months. So we've seen over the time since the budget that energy prices have remained high and sustainably high. That is what's led to the rise in Ofgem's energy price cap. It's Ofgem who set the price cap. Therefore, we are responding to that in the measures announced yesterday by the Chancellor of the Exchequer, which, by the way, totaled £9 billion.
Which he hadn't mentioned altogether. A few weeks ago, by the way. He suddenly found £9 billion. Interesting, isn't it?
Well, look, we're responding to, as you'd expect a good government to do, to respond to events as they happen. But we did lay out in the budget and the spending review that was attached to it many years of planning on public spending, getting the public finances in order, which you'd also expect the government to do as well.
Sorry, just to pick you up on this being a good government, in financial terms, this is the same government that has lost £4.7 billion in fraudulent schemes for the bounce back and furloughs and whatever else it might be, which, when taken to money wasted on PPE acquisitions, totals £13 billion wasted, lost, or possibly never to be found. And that's good government, is it, Minister? Dear God, what would bad government look like?
Well, Nick, I disagree with the premise that you've made there on those 2 points. In PPE, you'll recall back in April 2020, May 2020, there was a chance that this country was going to run out of PPE. Global prices for PPE were very, very high at that point, and we had to pay, of course, the global price. The price of PPE has fallen since the start of the pandemic as more suppliers come on, so you would expect those prices to go down. So that same PPE, which cost a lot to buy, is worth less today. That is actually, there's a very, very good, reasonable explanation for that. In terms of the fraud that you mentioned, look, when you look at the amount of money the government has provided overall to the economy, which I think was the right thing to do, a huge amount of money over the last couple of years, I think the amount of money the government has provided is the right thing to do. And by the way, we now have the strongest rate of economic growth of the G7.
So that makes it all right, does it? Because the cash taps were turned on with such force, the fact we've lost the thick end of £5 billion makes it all right?
No, we're always concerned about fraud, and we always make sure we bear down on fraud. But I think you have to recognise the context here of the global pandemic and the need to get money out there quickly at that time, back in the spring of 2020. It's easy with benefit of hindsight today, but at the time we paid for the PPE, we put the money in to support the economy.
Right.
Those were the right decisions overall, which I think the people of this country recognise.
Lastly, on the energy crisis, if I may, Minister, and I apologise not to you because you're used to industrial language, but I apologise to listeners in advance. David Cameron, a politician you'll know well, once said, let's get rid of all the green crap. If we were to drop the green levy, you'd save £200 per household. Why not do that, Minister?
Well, actually, it's the green side of these things that is actually the long-term solution here.
Well, not helping this year, is it?
Well,
the biggest pressure on income 30 years. Take-home pay will fall 5 times the amount it did during the financial crash of 2008. Drop the last time crap of the green levy and save everyone £200, Minister.
Well, look, we announced the £9 billion package of support yesterday to help people in the near term. But in the medium to long term, Nick, the answer is to have less dependence on fossil fuels, less dependence on these volatile global gas prices that has led to the rise in energy bills. And the way to do that is homegrown, low, zero carbon electricity through renewables and nuclear. That is actually the solution to this, is to have more homegrown, low-carbon energy. The UK already has the world's largest offshore wind capacity. We're putting a lot of extra effort into nuclear. We are also moving into things like tidal, floating offshore wind, a lot of new and nascent technologies that I think will produce the energy of the future. That is the long-term solution here.
All right, last moment, we have to move to the other big story, if we can, which would seem to be the desertion of the Prime Minister by so many of his key aides. Has anybody checked the whereabouts of Dylan the dog or Larry the cat? Are they staying with the Prime Minister or is everyone leaving?
Well, I don't have any latest on that, but what I would say is that the
He
Prime
cuts
Minister
a solitary figure, doesn't he? Why is that, do you imagine, Minister? Why have all his aides left?
Well, look, Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister, announced on Monday that there would be changes at the top in number 10. Resignations have made. Brilliant public servants who've served the country well, some through the pandemic, some going back years before that. But he did say on Monday there would be changes in terms of how number 10 Downing Street is run in response to the Sue Gray report update.
Well, the key change
so
appears
it was
to be
announced on Monday.
The key change appears to be the departure of Munira Mirza, who you, as a London MP, won't need to be told what an influence she was when Mr Johnson served as the Mayor of London.
You're quite right.
Indeed, a powerful force. I don't think that was of his doing. He's going to miss her enormously, isn't he?
Well, look, I think she will be missed. Munira was amazing as Boris's policy advisor when he was Mayor of London. A lot of Boris's successes as Mayor of London, I think, were down both to Boris and to Munira, and she's been phenomenal in number 10. But Boris is also clear in his response that he disagrees with what Munira Mirza had to say about the reasons behind her resignation. But nonetheless, the resignation, of course, has been accepted, and it's now time to move on and to get some new people into number 10 Downing Street to really help the Prime Minister deliver on the country's priorities over the next few years.
All right, just lastly on that, of course, we know why Ms Mirza has decided to leave. It's the line that the Prime Minister took against Sir Keir Starmer. Would you have said words or attacked Sir Keir in that fashion, Minister?
Well, look, it's not my job to do that. My job is I'm the Minister for Energy, Clean Growth and Climate Change. It's not my job to opine on these things. But what the Prime Minister said yesterday was that he disagreed with what Munira Mirza had to say about it, and nonetheless was recognising the great job that she'd done for him and for the government.
Well, Boris Johnson did say it. Rishi Sunak says he wouldn't have said it. Which camp are you in?
Well, look, I'm saying I'm getting on with my job as I've got a big enough job already.
Would you have ever used a blow as low as that?
Well, look, my job is to make sure that we've got energy security, that we're delivering the renewable energy in particular, we're keeping an eye on bills, making sure we get energy security, bringing in new nuclear. That is my job.
OK, I'm grateful for your time. Greg Hands, Minister of Business, Energy and Clean Growth, appearing here on LBC, where the news is next.
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 8